from there, I stalked the radio station. Like I stalked everybody who ever was attached to the radio station. So I started calling different shows. Yo, can I come and sit? And so I got no, no, no. And then I got our co-host is leaving on vacation for a few days. Do you mind, coming in? And so I spoke to the owner and I was just like, I want my own show. And he was like, Taylor, where? I was just like, out from 5 to 7. Mind you, I'm an insomniac. 5 a.m. is bedtime.
Hi, and welcome to the Life and Times podcast. We are on a mission to help those who are on their personal journeys of growth to feel empowered and expand their minds. We do this by sharing content that informs and inspires action through transformational interviews, storytelling, and real life lessons that you can apply today. Let's get into the episode. Today we have a very special guest with us. I am joined by Miss Tayla Andre, and I'm so happy to have her with us. I've been listening to her interview people for so many years, and now I get to interview her. So let's go. Very excited.
It's definitely weird being on the other end. As soon as you hit record, I wanted to be like, good rising, good morning.
Yes. Yes, so welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm like I said, it's really an honor. So I'm happy to have you. And so let's just first, before we even get into anything, just introduce yourself to our viewers and our listeners and let them know a little bit about just who you are.
Yes, and so my name is Tayla Andre. I am a radio personality with Spark FM, spearheaded by a Black woman in the city of Boston, Danielle Hot Sauce Johnson. I am also the business manager for All Aces Inc., which is a diversity, equity, and inclusion consulting firm spearheaded by Dr. Tia Martin, who was the Chief Resilience Officer for the city of Boston under Mayor Walsh. I am also a real estate agent, an author of a book that gives you the step-by-step guide for real estate to teach you the steps that you need in order to prepare for home ownership, as well as an inventor, a mom. I wear many hats.
Yes, you have a lot. You got a lot. I don't know how you keep this all together. That's a very impressive resume and things that you're doing. So congrats to you on all that you're doing. So let's get into, I want to get into a few things. I just, I want to pick your brain on some things because I listened to some of the, I've been listening to some of the episodes on the Wake Up with Taylor, and I know that you are crowned the Boston's Oprah because you're like the queen of just like, of hosting just really dope interviews and getting some really great information out of people. And I'm new to this interviewing space. I'm trying to learn. I want some of that Boston Oprah to rub off over here.
So the truth of the matter is, I never went to school for communications. I never went to school for broadcasting. I am just really inquisitive.
Yeah.
Like my soul just wants to know as much as I can possibly know, and not to just know, but to understand and to implement and to share knowledge.
Yeah.
And so, like, that's where interviewing comes from. I can say, like, from Governor Baker to Walsh to what's Mousie's real name? The police commissioner from back in, like, all of these like elite people that I don't think I've ever put together an actual sheet of questions.
Yeah.
It was really just like questions that I had, questions I hear from community, whether it's in person, whether it's online, concerns that people have. And I've never had to prepare for an interview. I think the only one that I was really nervous about was Millie Jackson. So Millie Jackson was like the Foxy Brown Little Kim before Foxy Brown Little Kim.
Yeah.
She was like the Nicki Minaj before Nicki Minaj. So it was an amazing. So, and the only reason why I was nervous is because I wasn't from her era.
Yeah.
And so I wasn't like super familiar with what was going on back in the 70s, back in the 80s. And so that was the only thing that really made me nervous because I didn't feel like I had enough information.
Yeah.
But the knowledge that she dropped after, like, And I want to say like probably the worst interview ever. And it wasn't the worst interview, but I asked a question that I did not think was like it should have been on the table.
Yeah.
But um Jane Kennedy.
Hmm.
So Jane Kennedy was like anybody who's over the age of 40 had Jane Kennedy on their wall.
Yeah.
She was the first female sports broadcaster.
Hmm.
She was a black woman, absolutely gorgeous. She's still gorgeous to this day. But there was like a sex tape put out by her
Uh-oh.
ex-husband.
Uh-oh.
And so I asked her about it. And when I tell you the PR was blown up
All over
like
you.
this is live. We're deleting it. Cut the interview. But the way that she answered the question very gracefully, and
Yeah.
so there was like,
Yeah, I can imagine.
maybe asking a question that's not on the table. But when it comes to like politics, like everything's on the table because these are my tax dollars.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it just as far as like interviewing styles and what works for you and what's best for you, like you just whatever feels natural and whatever flows, like you can't force it and you can't because it comes out on film.
It's
like,
so true. Yeah.
And then even like in radio, if it's not like a podcast like this, it's still you can hear like the awkwardness.
Yeah. Definitely.
And so you just like you really want to be like authentically you, ask the questions that you feel comfortable asking, and even if it makes somebody else uncomfortable, especially in like political spaces,
go for it anyway. Shoot your shot.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how did you get into this space, the radio space? You said you didn't go to school for it. So like, what made you? How did you fall into this?
And I literally fell into it, and so I was in Birmingham Southern, which is a liberal arts school in Birmingham, Alabama, and I was a bartender for we would consider it an after-hour spot, but it was the clubs don't close till 6.
Right,
so,
right.
So I was a bartender, and I met like some amazing business owners, and one of them, Jay, shout out to Jay, had a podcast that was like international, and it was equivalent to like web radio. I can't even think of the name right now.
Yeah.
And so he was like, do you want to do this radio show with me? And I was just like, okay. He was just like, you're mad controversial, you talk mad stuff. When I first started, unorthodox conversations, really. So let's rewind a little bit. So back in 2005, I gave birth to my daughter, who is now 16. And so Asaria changed a lot for me. And even though I had a Nari, who's currently 18, it was something about my daughter and the example that I was setting for her of the next generation of women. Like it hit me a little different. And so I wanted to do things differently with her that I maybe didn't have the knowledge, skill set, or understanding for a Nari.
Yeah.
And so she breastfed for lesser of a time than a Nari. And so she had to be transitioned. And I wasn't for the formula. I wasn't doing milk. I started not interviewing, but investigating or researching different types of milk if you don't want to give your baby formula.
Yeah.
And when I tell you, that took me down the wrong rabbit hole that led me to where I am today.
Yeah.
And so doing like the research on what the components of milk are and how harmful some of the chemicals, and now all of a sudden they have to go ahead and change the language, like these hormones won't. And so that really is what it was. And then once I started getting all of this knowledge, mind you, this is 16 years ago. So internet wasn't what the internet is now, and all of my thoughts, feelings, and expressions were completely like, why would you say these things online when everyone's like, oh, I'm going to see family this weekend? And so that was like the catalyst of, you have a great voice, you say things that a lot of people aren't really thinking about or want to say and don't feel comfortable saying. And so 100,000 listeners, live listeners throughout the world.
Yeah.
Goodfellas Radio. I did it for about 6 to 8 months, and then they were transitioning from one building into an actual studio. And so while that transition was taking place, I came back home to Boston. And I remember being at the gas station and just like flipping through the stations. When you leave from college and you come back, like things change.
Yeah.
And so I'm flipping through the stations and I hear, what sounds like a, black radio.
Yeah.
It sounds like us. They talking like I talk, right? So I'm listening and I'm listening and I'm listening. And then the host says, "Do you have anything to add?" And the female responded, "Nah." I'm like, she ain't got nothing to add. What the hell you doing? I got something to add.
Always
So
have something to add.
From there, I stalked the radio station.
Yeah.
Like I stalked everybody who ever was attached to the radio station.
Yeah.
I called them. They were like, "Listen, I'm not it. Call this person.
Yeah.
I'm not it. Call that person." I'm not like. And so I finally got to the owner, and I was just like, "Listen, I need to be here. Well, I ain't got no space for you." So I started calling different shows.
Yeah.
Yo, can I come and sit? And so I got no, and then I got our co-host is leaving on vacation for a few days. Do you mind, coming in? And so for those 2 days, I think that I came in as a substitute.
Yeah.
By the time she came back, it was like, well, we kind of like her, so you guys could either do like a tag team where it's 2 males and 2 females, or it could just be her. And I really wish she would have stayed.
Yeah.
She ended up being my co-host when I literally created my own show. I didn't like the dynamics that was taking place. I couldn't pick topics that I wanted.
Yeah.
I was doing the legwork of getting the interviews, but I couldn't interview. It was like, "Oh, before we wrap up, Taylor, do you have a question?" It's just like, I had 30,000 questions and none of them were what you asked.
Right.
And so I spoke to the owner and I was just like, "I want my own show." And he was like, "Taylor, where?" I was just like, "Out from 5 to 7. Mind you, I'm an insomniac. 5 a.m. is bedtime.
Yeah.
And I said I wanted 5 to 7 a.m. And for 4.5 years, I did 5 to 7 a.m. with some of the most amazing interviews that have ever taken place, if you let me toot my own horn.
Yeah.
And there's over at least 5,000-6,000 hours on YouTube.
Wow.
In the form of over 700 videos.
Well, that just shows you, when you want something, you got to be persistent for it. There was no lane open for you. You opened up your own lane, and they messed up leaving the door open for you. You kicked that thing down, girl. Check you out. That's so dope. I love it. I love that story. I'm so glad I asked. I love that story. That's really cool. So how did you end up? So now are you still on? Oh, you're on online radio, right? Spark FM.
Yep, we're on Spark, and Spark is woman-owned, Black-owned, Boston-owned, by Danielle Hot Sauce Johnson, who, if you Google her, there's tons of publications of what she's creating.
Yeah.
And I'm honored to be here. I've been here since the beginning when she was like, "What do you think?" And I was just like, "Let's go."
Yeah.
And so, it's a wonderful thing to watch, but also to be a part of. And so I'm also part of the sales team to bring in commercials and to help with the executive team, our next steps and our growth. And so there's so much potential here, right? And in the same vein, traditional radio is not where it's at. People listen to music on apps. No one's turning on the radio. They're turning on their Bluetooth.
Yeah, it's so true.
And listening that way. So, and it was digital. It was digital radio.
Yeah.
I couldn't think about it. With Goodfellas. Back again, 14, 13 years ago, digital radio, before it was even a thing, because it's not really a huge thing today.
Yeah, it's still, yeah, that's really cool. I think, and also just how you got into this whole thing with like, having your daughter and starting to like look into a lot of things. I can totally relate to that because from a very young age, like I was like ahead of the game. Oh shoot, I thought I plugged in my computer, but it's about to die. Let me get the charger before it actually dies on us. Oh, I'm sorry.
I have had the problem one too many times.
I plugged it into the wall, but I didn't plug it into the... Okay, my bad. All right, here we are. But yeah, I totally can relate to that, like looking into things. Cause I'm like, I've been kind of like on this whole trying to figure out things that we put into our body since I was like, really young, like 14 years old. I remember I used to get like headaches all the time, and I would just, all the time popping Advil and Motrin and all that stuff. And one day I was like, what? I don't want to keep on doing this. Like, I don't want to have to take these pills all the time. So I just decided I was gonna stop. And my mother was so upset with me. She said, why do you keep on? Because I was complaining because for a while I would still have the headaches. And I was like, I'm just going to drink some water. I'm going to go to sleep. And I don't know where I got these ideas from, but I was 14. I just went for it. My mother would get so mad at me. She's like, just take a pill. And I'm like, no, I don't want to do it. And eventually the headaches stopped. Like they completely stopped. Like I felt like my body had something in it that it should be able to naturally fight these things. So I kind of went on this natural, once I saw how the headaches completely went away after a certain period of time, when this was something that I was dealing with every single day, I was like, no, there's something more to this. So I just kept on digging deeper, and there was barely any internet when I was 14. There wasn't like, it wasn't a big thing where I could just like go on YouTube and see all these people doing this. And I was like, also, my mother used to perm my hair, and I started feeling my new growth coming. I was like, I kind of like how that texture feels. She's like, well, when you get old enough to do your own hair, then you can stop doing that. And I was like, all right, cool. And when I got to high school, I was like, no more perms. So I just kind of was like on this natural kick, but nobody in my family, the same thing. Nobody agreed with it. Everybody's like, I don't know what you're talking about, but people are starting to hop on board now. I'm like, yeah, y'all are late. But it feels good to me to like spearhead things in that direction. But whatever, that was just my little side note. But let's talk a little bit about real estate and what you're doing in that space, because that's really cool. So how did you get into real estate, and what's your mission in this real estate game?
So kind of fell into that one too. So one thing that a lot of people don't know is I went and took my real estate test back when I was 18.
Oh wow.
And I failed, but I didn't have a mentor to be like, okay, take it again.
Yeah.
Or there wasn't no like widespread internet that was just like, all right, more than 60% of agents fail on their first time. So it was just like, oh, I'm a failure. It's not for me. And then I did all these other things that I did in life. And then being on air, I started seeing changes in my neighborhood that I could not explain and that I've never seen before, because it's cycles, and it's like 20-year cycles, and I was in my 20s, and so I was just like, what the heck is going on, and why is there a white woman walking a poodle?
Yeah.
I could even walk down that street when I was little. How are you walking a poodle at 5 a.m.? Yeah. And so I started asking questions. I interviewed damn near everybody in Walsh's cabinet. Couldn't nobody give me an answer. I interviewed mad agents, developers, and nobody could outside of like, oh, it's cycles. No one could tell me what was going on. And so I was just like, oh, so none of y'all gonna give me the answer? Okay, I'm gonna fix this. And I went and got my license, and now I understand why nobody talks about it in ways in which I do. Because A, it's a very uncomfortable conversation, and B, depending on how you frame the narrative, it could lead you to losing your license because of the ethics committee. And so in my first year of real estate, I made no money, none, like nothing. And so I just kept learning and wanting to know more and wanting to understand more. And there's so much about real estate. I'm 6 years in and still don't know everything.
Yeah.
And so I'm continuously learning, and then things change. Like, it's not like for 6 years it's all been the same and I just didn't learn it all.
Yeah.
It's like everything is changing all the time. Laws are changing, ordinances are changing, how one conducts business is changing. And so it's been a wild ride. I was like, the purpose was to see and understand. So rewind a little bit, right? And so I took the class, I got my license, I'm learning about this thing that is real estate. And there's things that aren't making sense to me. Like the whole, like history as a whole isn't making sense to me. And so just like reconstruction for the longest time, like I couldn't understand, like, how were we senators and then we went to Jim Crow? Like, how did that happen? That sounds like backwards. Like I didn't understand timelines and how things work. And so it wasn't until like I did a deeper dive for self on, self-knowledge and understanding how things work as a bigger picture that I understood, and of course read The Color of Law and got a better understanding of how redlining and blockbusting and like how all of these laws that were enacted by the federal government brought us to where we are today, why Dorchester, Mattapan, Roxbury are the demographics that we are. It was literally a red line around these communities that we could not rent, own from, that there are still covenants in Brookline that say not one drop of Negroid blood can live in this house except in the capacity of servitude.
Wow.
There's covenants that still exist today like that. And the only reason why they exist because they've been illegal for over 30 years, but because the homes have never been sold to someone of Negroid blood. It's not something that needs to be changed or something that needs to be removed. Or maybe they refinance. The family has always owned the home. But there's still deeds that have them. And so from there, working with clients, and a lot of my clients, because I'm very community based, a lot of my clients represent community numbers. And so as far as like what their income is, what their credit score may be, how much savings they might have is pretty, not general, not all of them, but a larger portion have similar issues. And so I found myself spending 60% of my time educating people on things that I feel like we should have learned in high school. You should have learned how to budget. You should have learned how to manage a checkbook. You should have learned how to maintain a credit score, how to obtain a credit card. That's real life things that you should be learning in school, especially when systemically your parents that never had, was still putting money in coffee containers and under the mattress. And so I went ahead and I wrote a book. And the book turned into an audiobook that then turned into a course. It's in both English and Spanish. We're working on Haitian Creole and Cape Verdean Criollo. And so just to give access to everyone, like, the steps that you need to take. Like, we have all of these studies and all of these numbers about what we could do to improve, but I don't feel like there's like enough resources. Just like, oh, well, you can go to, insert any organization that has first-time home buying classes, but you're not looking for a first-time home buying class unless you're ready and prepared to become a homeowner. And so the book is like to prepare you for that step. What are you looking forward to? And one of my favorite things about the book is that I create a timeline, because remember, I didn't understand as a real estate agent. So unless you're going to look for the knowledge, you're not going to understand or have an idea of why these things exist. And so I literally take you from chattel slavery all the way through to Wells Fargo not lending to Black people 2022. So we go through the entire timeline, and it took up a good portion of the book and a good portion of the course, but I felt like it was extremely necessary
to just know that history.
To set the foundation of how to move about these chess pieces, because it really is a game of chess, and if you don't know how to play, you out here playing checkers and getting played.
Yeah, it's so true. And I'm glad, it's sad that right now we even have to talk about this. And for the fact that, you said it's been 30 years that these things have been illegal. Only 30 years? Like that, that's one thing.
Technically the 30 years is like, it's more than 30 years,
Yeah.
but it's like the 30 years is when they were like, okay, like we're actually gonna enforce these things.
Yeah.
And when you take a look at how the fact that there is a Color of Law 2 coming out.
Oh wow.
I don't know if I was supposed to say that, but
insider information.
The author of Color of Law is creating his second edition, which is kind of circling back on some of the things that he wrote about in the first one, and how it to lead us and bring us to where we are today, with the context of also like what role do real estate agents and brokerages play in this redlining of modern times, or like, I'm gonna leave it there, like the modern times redlining.
Yeah. So what do you think agents can do? Because I'm a licensed real estate agent. So I've been licensed since 2015, but I wasn't active at all with my license up until recently, because I ended up going off and building food trucks and restaurants and all of that stuff. But now, since I have my daughter, I'm trying to do something that accommodates her a lot better. So I'm trying to figure out, I'm getting back into this real estate game, but just talk about what do you think agents, the role that we can play from your perspective, and really helping our clients in that way.
Well, one of my favorite quotes, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. said that you can change laws, but you can't change the heart of men. And that's paraphrasing from the actual quote. And so for me, it's educating, and there's now a space that's being created with the diversity, equity, and inclusion in real estate. And so I'd like to say that I am like one of the, I really am not, but I feel like the book narrating the history of real estate is a form of blazing a trail of truth.
Yeah.
To the equity both equity that we lost as a people, that our grandparents didn't have access to, and equity in the form of like equal opportunity.
Yeah.
And so I think those in position of affluence and influence don't know. Yeah. They don't know what they don't know, right? And so yesterday I was in a meeting and we were talking about COVID and how there's very little to no resources regarding deaf people, and how to navigate like the internet, how to navigate public spaces, and getting like COVID vaccines or COVID testing. Like there's no information in Braille for them. Yeah. And so I was just like, you know what? I never even thought about that. But I don't have anyone in my family that's deaf. So it's not something that's on my radar. And if your proximity is, Caucasian, and you don't have anyone in your friends or family network or close circle, these aren't things that matter to you. And not to say that you don't care about them, but it's not in your scope. And so out of sight, out of mind. And so that's where I feel like playing a role of educating, like, well, you talk about Black Lives Matter and you have a Black Lives Matter sign in your yard. do you plan on using a black realtor? Do you plan on using a black lawyer?
Yeah.
Do you plan on using a black inspection company? Like, just throwing that out there,
Yeah.
because the transfer of wealth not only happens when a house is bought and sold, depending on who, is buying and selling, but
Yeah.
also who are the agents behind that sale.
Yeah.
Because 6% of $1 million, baby, like, you could change somebody's life
Yeah.
with one transaction.
Yeah.
And so if you really want to do the good that you swear you want to do, I'm a black agent. You need agents?
Got you. Yeah. And you know what? You said something that's so important, and it's something that I've been really reflecting on these last weeks as well. You know, some people just need to be educated. And it's not just educating our people on what it is, it's educating the people who just don't know. Like you said, because I had two recent conversations with two different people. One was black, and who has, who is very affluent and comes from a wealthy background, all that stuff. And another person who was white, also very wealthy, and I was speaking to them about my experience growing up in the projects, because I grew up in Orchard Park, and just telling them about that experience and some of the things that really upset me, like how I decided that I wasn't gonna, after I came from college, I was not going back to the projects, because when you turn 18, you have to sign the lease, and just that process for me felt so belittling. Like, seeing the things that they were asking you to do, how they have to get all up into your bank account. There's a cap on how much money you can even have in the bank, which was, at that time, it was $2,000. That is burned into my brain. And I'm like, they're saying you can't have more than $2,000 in your bank, but we're here.
That's a transmission right there. Don't let your transmission blow. You can't have no money for.
That's exactly. It's just a trap, So I'm just like, but both of them, when I was explaining it to them, both of them were like, wow, I never knew that. Like, how did, it was just they were just so shocked. And it made me realize, like, for me, it seems like common knowledge, because, I've known it my whole life. But
I know, exactly. My mama knows.
Exactly.
We know.
But people really just don't know what it is. People really don't know the systems that are stacked against people. People really don't understand it, and they keep hearing us saying, oh, the system is stacked up against us, but they don't really know what that means and what it looks like. Mm-hmm. When you lay it out for people, then they have, they can have more empathy, or feel the need to want to do something with you about it or something like that. So I think that's really important, educating folks on this stuff. But yeah, so what's next for you? Because you're a powerhouse. what do you see for yourself, let's say, over the next 10 years? What do you think what are you gonna be doing, and where do you want to be?
So I recently was granted a patent by the United States government. And so this particular patent is for a snowsuit. I had my youngest son, who is now 3, when I was 35. And being, I was at the top of my game in real estate. I was moving, shaking. I was in newspapers, and it was just hard to rush out the door with a 3-year-old trying to put a snowsuit on. And I was like, I am not built for this. This geriatric pregnancy, I am not built for this life. And so I asked a friend of mine to create a snowsuit and just put 4 zippers on it, like one on each leg, one on the arms, just so I could just put him in, zip him up, and we can go. And so many people were like,
yeah,
where'd you get that? I have one. Like, do they come in big sizes? And so I went ahead and I maxed out my credit card and got an attorney and pulled a patent, and I was recently awarded a patent.
Congrats. That's so dope. I need one of those. I need one of those snowsuits, because I know
we're actually looking at adults for skiing, for like snorkeling, for like sports related.
And even for my daughter, because like it's a really like the designs of these things are so bad, because like if you're out, even if like she's 2 now and she can go to the bathroom, like if we're out and she says she has to use the bathroom while she has a snowsuit on, like life is over. That's too much to do. That is just too much of a struggle. Like, so yes, but when you get those, when they hit the market, I definitely will be a customer because that sounds amazing.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'll keep you posted.
Yeah, no, I love it, and I just love your just your drive. Like, you know, you see a problem, you like, what's the solution? You seem very solutions oriented. You know, hey, this I'm tired of running around with this child, like, but you know, you can figure out a solution for it, and you did. That's super dope. Super dope. I love it. Let me see. So, like, where can you just before we wrap this up, like, tell us a little bit about, like, what's your background? Where do you come from? Like, were you born and raised here in Boston? Like, how did you? Because you're just so driven. So it just makes me think of, like, where did this drive come from in you?
I would have to. So I got the same problem with you now. I gotta plug in my phone. So my story is so weird, right? It's very different. So my mom is Cape Verdean, my dad is Black. My mom grew up in Duxbury, one of the wealthiest zip codes in Massachusetts. And I grew up on a cranberry bog.
Oh, wow.
Like, I grew up with chickens. I grew up with patches of strawberries and zucchini and eating corn off the cob, still in a husk. I grew up, my son's father says that I am, oh gosh, what do you say? Farm raised, cage free. And that's how I conduct my life. Like, I'm farm raised, cage free.
I love it.
And so with my dad being in the city, you know, Boston was my second home. Going to school in Plymouth, I was like one of literally 5 that looked like me. I'm friends with all 4 of the other ones. And so I always felt like Boston was more home to me because I could better relate.
Yeah.
And so I was here on the weekends. I grew up at Four Corners. I ate at Vaughn's. I had soul chips, ketchup chips. Like, you know, I was at Son's Pizza. And so, though I am not per se a Boston bred, I was born in the city of Boston. And I do feel like I was bred here. I just didn't attend BPS.
Yeah.
And so, you know, holidays, vacations, weekends, I was here. And so it has always felt like home for me. And I do take it so offensively when people are like, you're a transplant. I'm like, you're talking to the wrong one. Right. Most Bostonians. So I do understand, like, if you didn't attend one elementary, one middle, and one high school of BPS, then you're not a Bostonian. But there were things that I learned growing up and going to school in Plymouth that I feel could be implemented in BPS.
Yeah.
Like the fact that my sister, who was 6 years younger than me, her kids are going to the same school she went to. And I'm just like, there's no reason why we should be shipping our kids out to Mecca.
Yeah.
Like, that was busing. Are we done busing our kids? Because it's 2022. And when I take a look at, like, we have a huge Caribbean population here. A lot of the Caribbean persons that moved from their island are more intelligent than Americans.
Yeah.
And they don't have multi-million-dollar schools. Now, I'm not like, I've never been to all the islands and went to all the schools, but I know that their schools don't look like Holbrook schools that look like a damn college campus.
Yeah, right.
But they're more intelligent. They understand math and science and health on a different level and on a different scale. And so for me, it's like a couple things. A, why are we busing our babies? 2, what is the curriculum that is being taught in these in these schools that we're sending our babies to, that can't be duplicated here
Exactly.
in the city.
Yeah, exactly.
And then why from Roxbury to West Roxbury, all meaning all, why can't the entire school system be at the level of a Latin? Like what?
Right.
It's not the building, right?
Exactly.
What is it that can be duplicated so that my son could go to the Henry Grew, live in Hyde Park, have his own kids, and his kids can go to the Henry Grew?
Yeah.
Like, why is that such a far-fetched concept?
Yeah.
Why is it acceptable for you to live in Hyde Park and for your kid to go to school in South Boston?
Right, exactly. Like, why can't we just fix the problems that we have here instead of saying, okay, just go to the place where they already fixed the problem and ours stays how it stays? It's crazy. Yeah, so like, but your mindset though, like that drive, what gives you that drive to just see a problem and just kick down doors and do all of that stuff? Like, where does that drive come from?
My mom, my daddy. God, I don't know.
Yeah.
It really is like it's in my soul.
Yeah.
It's like I do not. No is not acceptable. No is not. We literally have cars. We have airplanes and helicopters. Like, you gonna tell me no for what?
Yeah.
There's a solution
Yeah.
to this problem. And growing up, I was like, as far as my cartoons are concerned, like I was a Flintstone girl, I was a Jetsons girl, I was a Go-Go Inspector Gadget. Like that was my era, right? Care Bears, Captain Planet. So we don't litter. I do not litter. I don't play about litter. But I want to say it's like how I was raised and what I saw. I saw we put seeds in the ground, and a couple months later, I was able to eat food.
Yeah.
And so, like, in some way, I watched miracles my whole life. And when you think about, like, that's kind of miraculous that you could just put a seed in the ground.
Yeah.
And in a couple months, you could eat the food. It's just like, we take those things for granted. And as a kid, I thought like that was magic to me.
Yeah.
Like, yo, like it to this day, I can't eat what's in the grocery stores because of what I was raised eating.
Mm-hmm.
But even today, like it's still so. I'm a plant mom.
Mm-hmm.
I celebrate all like when the babies come, when like new leaves come. I'm like,
I take my daughter around all the time. I'm like, oh, look at the baby leaves. So she's into it with me too. She has her little watering can, and we go around. Like, but I love how you said that. Like you watched miracles happen, and I just you just changed my life. I swear to you. Me and my daughter are planting some food this summer because I always take her to the farm. Like we go to the Wardsbury farm in Sharon. We like going over there, so we'll pick like carrots and tomatoes and peaches and all those things. But like to see it, there's something about seeing it grow and knowing. You're right. It's like an everyday miracle that we take for granted. So we're planting something this year. I don't know. But yeah, no, that is so
you know, May 1st is in a couple days. That's when a lot of seeds go into the ground. So it's right around the corner. You might want to plan accordingly.
Yeah, I gotta go get me some seeds. Yeah, no, but that is so dope. Thank you so much. Like, I think, this is just, I've learned a lot just from listening to you, and, your drive really is inspiring to me. And I just can't wait to just see all that you do. I can't wait. What are your socials gonna be called? You have what's the?
Yeah, so they're called starfish because starfish have like little. They eat. For those who do not know, I'm also like everywhere that we lived was always by the ocean, so we did like a lot of ocean walks. My family did a lot of quahogging and clamming, and they to this day. Thanksgiving ain't Thanksgiving without some quahogs or clams. So I, as much as I was on the farm or with the cranberries, I was also at the ocean.
Mhm.
And so you don't really see starfish like
No.
at the beach like they used to. Like starfish used to be all over the place, just like you see all these damn rocks.
Yeah.
That's how many starfish used to be out there in abundance. And now like I don't even see starfish at
Oh,
all.
that's sad.
And so, for those who don't know, starfish eat from their stomachs. And so, when you turn them over and they have like all of those little, those are their like feet to walk, and they walk really, really slow. But in the middle, that's how they eat and digest their food. And so, I just thought it was cute because it was like the arm zippers, the leg zippers, and then like the neck zippers is 5, and he looked like a little starfish, but he was like, I was like, oh, my little starfish. And so it's called
Yeah,
starfish.
well, I can't
I'm
wait.
thinking of starfish athletics is probably what it athletic wear.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of.
Oh, that's really dope. I love it. I love it so much. So anything that you want to leave people with before we wrap up? Any final words of encouragement, words of advice, whatever you got?
A couple things, right? And so first, one of the things I did not say that I would love to say to parents is you were put on earth to guide your children. You are not the end all, you are not the be all. You brought them into this world, you can't take them out, but like my kids say, that also means murders. But in all seriousness, like these little souls came here knowing that there was something that they wanted to do and something that they wanted to accomplish. And so forcing your kid to do what you want them to do is like, that's not what their soul was brought here to do for you. And so just please give these young people the grace that they deserve to explore themselves and their soul purpose, while also guiding them through whatever journey that they decide. I would also say that, curiosity did not kill the cat. Curiosity is what helps us learn and helps us grow. And all of the little menacing children out here, the quote unquote terrible twos, that's when they're learning, they're inquisitive, they have questions, they want to touch, they want to smell, they like, don't ever stop doing that. And then, of course, shameless plug, if you know anybody that's looking to buy or sell real estate, or specifically need help on what their next steps are, have no idea what the process looks like or what should I do, the book, the course, the audio book in English and Spanish is, I have people that took Maha, that took NACA, and was like, yo, Tayla, in 90 minutes, I have a better understanding than the 24 hours I just took.
Yeah.
So thank you. It truly is meant to be a resource and something that you can go back to. So can you read the whole book in one day? Absolutely. It's like 70 pages. It's nothing. But in those 70 pages, it is everything you need to know about what it looks like to be a homeowner. And so everything Tayla Andre, TaylaAndre.com. I also have a hoodie line with aligning your chakras as a Black woman meditating and her chakras are aligned. Awakening your third eye, ride my root chakra, and suck my sacral chakra.
All right. A little raunchiness with the alignment. I like it.
Yeah. Well, my sister said, yo, Taylor's the only person I know that will be like, say Jesus and sex in the same sentence. And I'm just like, I'm a whole human.
It all goes together, right?
It is all together.
Yeah, no, that's so dope. I love it. And yes, home ownership is like super important. I think, anybody that's looking, tap into that book. Get yourself informed. The process is, there's a lot to know in this process. I've been through the process. I'm a homeowner. And also just this on the topic of real estate, we need more people of color in the real estate space in general, more than just agents. Like, we need some underwriters, we need appraisers, we need appraisers. So let me say that again. We need appraisers because I done ran into some issues with appraising. So let me just real quick. I own a 3-family in Roslindale, and it was a family home. So I was very lucky enough to get it with a lot of equity, and I went to go get an appraisal so that I can get a HELOC, and this appraisal came back. Mind you, when I purchased the home, it appraised for almost like way more than that, 300,000 higher than what that was. So I was just like, there's something a little fishy going on right now for you to tell me that. I was like, I can't even buy a dilapidated something for the amount that you're telling me, but this is the reason why you're saying that I can't get this HELOC. But that's a whole nother story for a whole nother time.
I just want to know if you sued them yet.
I did not. It was I probably should have, but it was a crazy.
There is no statute of limitation on racism. Yeah, absolutely. Order a second appraisal.
Yeah.
You know the business. Order your second appraisal, and make sure that I would even reach out to the division of the Commonwealth Division of Appraisers, and I would report that appraiser.
Yeah. Well, yeah, we have to get into it.
Right. Hold on. Really quickly, so I recently interviewed, I can't think of her name right now, but she is the author of Race Brokers. She's out of Texas, Arizona, and the book is absolutely amazing. She spoke in Rhode Island, and that's how I heard her. I interviewed her 2 weeks ago. 74% of appraisers are white males between the ages of 40 and 65 years old. When you're 65 years old in 2022, whatever were you raised in?
Yeah.
Jim Crow.
Right.
And so and I think it was like 9% are, it's not 9% of like are others, or like those that identify. And then there was another percent of like people who didn't self-identify, and so it was just like unknown.
Yeah.
But in total, we have over 42,000 appraisers across the United States of America. Less than 2,000 of them are Black and Latino.
Wow.
Out of 42,000, less than 2,000 are Black and Latino.
Wow.
And so yes, we need appraisers, and you don't need to do much to be an appraiser. And so yes, that is my final statement.
Yeah.
We need appraisers, we need inspectors. As far as like inspections can make a lot of money. I think here in the Commonwealth, you can make up to $150,000 a year. You make your own schedule. You go into a house. Like if you're in contracting, or you know a little bit when it comes to contracting, you don't need a license. You just need to go and work under someone else and get your hours and become an inspector. When it comes to appraisers, it's sort of like the military, as if you have a degree, you can go up the ladder a little bit faster.
Yeah.
But if you don't have a degree, you just go and work under someone else and get the hours that you need and open up your own appraisal business. And so that is something that I am considering.
Yeah, I considered it too.
Yeah, because it's crazy.
Yeah.
2,000?
Yeah. Yeah. Honestly, just after the experience that I had, I was like, should I go into this? Because this seems kind of crazy. We need to have our own representation.
If they're like, you have an assignment tomorrow in Westboro, you're like, nah. And then it just gets canceled. Like, no one is like, you have to go. You literally do not have to go anywhere.
Yeah.
You get to choose where you want to work, when you want to work, how many hours, how many houses you want to inspect as an appraiser.
Yeah.
And so yes. And Black men that are currently or formerly incarcerated, because you're not dealing with like finances or people's money. Like it doesn't have a stipulation like, oh, you can't have any criminal record.
Yeah.
Unless you have like breaking and entering.
Yeah.
But you can also seal your record. And so I'm trying to get all my formerly incarcerated people, all these Black men, these scary Black men, those are daddy, uncles, and cousins.
Yeah.
So that's an opportunity. Just throwing that out there.
Yeah. Well, Tayla, thank you so much. I appreciate your time. This has been amazing. I look forward to just seeing everything that you're doing, and hopefully we can collaborate on some things. Maybe I don't know. We'll see. Figure something out.
Absolutely. I'm open.
Yeah. But thank you, and thank you so much, everybody, for watching. If you've enjoyed this episode, please give it a like, subscribe to the channel. That's a way that you can support the channel very easily. It's free, and you just help us to help the channel to grow and get our messages out to more and more people, so that we continue to educate and inspire. So thank you so much, everybody. Peace.